If elected, what will you do to encourage commerce that brings family wage jobs, especially green high-wage jobs with technology-oriented companies? And what other ideas do you have to attract families to move to the Ashland School District? And let's start with Alan.
Ashland's such a great place. AFN's a great asset, although we still have, I think, $13 million worth of debt. We're not really addressing that. But our perception outside of the city is a really big thing. We need businesses that succeed in Ashland. Planning department's done a really good job the last few years under Bill Molnar into making processes work pretty quick for people that want to come and build something. Things like the road diet, that we narrow the road down to 2 lanes. It's perceived outside of the city as traffic is going to be congestion. I talked to a guy today, they're prohibiting the left turn. It's his main route for his truck to deliver. He's probably going to have to go through downtown now. Hersey Street's too narrow for him to turn onto. We've got to make things that work well for business. Our water supply, when we had the flood in '97, we had no water in our fire hydrants for like 10 days. If we had a fire, we were out of business. If we have that happen again, and we can't fix it as quickly as we did, all your people lose their jobs. I mean, the restaurants can't be open, you can't occupy without water. So we need to build an alternate water source. We need to do things that just have to get completed in Ashland. We need to support our local business. Each one of us. When you go to shop locally. Because we need to keep our people working here. Bus service, which is now $2. It was free when I was there. That was a big thing for me. I think we tripled ridership when we went to nothing, and people were shocked. Because it was just a quarter when we dropped it to free. But now we raise it from $1 to $2, and ridership goes way down, and people are surprised. I wouldn't be surprised about that. So the perception outside of the city, and I work on a lot of things outside of Medford and kind of brought that forward because I reached out a lot. The mayors, I initiated, we have meetings every other month, all the mayors in Southern Oregon. When 9/11 hit, we were having a mayor meeting when the first news of the towers hit, and I'll never forget sitting there with all the mayors and the reaction. But we need to bring everything together. Ashland's a part of this whole valley, and we need to support that. And we're such a unique location. We're a little bit limited on growth. I don't think we can go past 26, 27,000. We just don't have the natural resources. So we kind of opted out of the growth plan. We refused to increase our urban growth boundary because we're limited by natural resources and water. So I think there's a lot of things we can continue to doing. The one thing we've done well, Julie, Carol, and school board, we have the best school system, if not in the state, in the entire nation. And that attracts people. So I'm really proud of our school district. I now have a grandson that started in Bellevue, where I went to school and my kids went to school, so 3rd generation. Pretty cool.
Please let me know if you'd like me to repeat the question at any point.
John? The question is, how are we going to attract businesses that will provide living wage jobs for families with children? With families with green children. Thank you. Okay, so first of all,
Used to a table.
we have an economic development strategy. The city hasn't had one for a long time, but we have an economic development strategy that was approved a year ago, last summer, by the city council. And the core of it is to leverage, parlay, base our strategy. What the strategy does is diversify the economy beyond Shakespeare and SOU by using our quality of life to attract innovative entrepreneurial businesses and people, and to cultivate them who will come here and create high-value jobs because they want to base their business in Ashland. Now, one of the things that I got the council to do was to agree to renew that and revise it every year. So I'm getting ready to bring them some ideas on the revision of that. And one of the ideas I'm going to include is to specifically identify the public schools as one of the key components of quality of life here that will affect our ability to attract these businesses. By doing that, you set the basis for then allocating money that the city can spend or disperse to help the schools because it's consistent with the economic development plan. I want to tell you two ideas. It will take a minute to say them, so I'm going to talk a little bit quickly. Here is one idea. AFN, our fiber optic network, generates about $400,000 a year in revenue beyond its direct expenses. Now, it's no longer being responsible for the $1,450,000 a year to pay off the debt, which has to do with the costs of how it was rolled out and all that. So, but it is making a contribution. It only has 40% market penetration. Of the people in Ashland who use internet, only 40% are getting it directly or indirectly through AFN. And yet that 40%, those people are generating $400,000 that's usable within the city budget. So what I've been wanting to do for a couple of years is run a campaign to get people to switch to AFN so that that additional money will be available for public use. But what it's going to take is an issue. We're going to have to say, for every point that we go above the 40% market penetration, that money is going to go to a particular target. That money, that target, could be supporting the schools. So if we do that, now think about it for a minute. This involves you, because we have to mount a real citizens campaign. I will be with you. I'm sure that these guys would also support it. And if we can do that, then we can actually generate money that it's like free money for us. Otherwise, it's going to charter. Why should it go to charter when it could go to the Ashland schools? I think that logic would be persuasive and we could get something significant. And what's important is it would be an income stream. That's what you're after, is an income stream. Also, you don't want to chase the, what do you call it, chimera of the business about lowering rates. How much time do I have? Okay, talk to me afterwards. I'll tell you more about it.
Thank you.
Please repeat the question.
If elected, what will you do to encourage commerce that brings family wage jobs, especially green high-wage jobs, such as business-oriented or technology-oriented businesses? And what other ideas do you have to attract families to the Ashland School District?
This question gets right to the point. The point is economy and economic sustainability. The true definition of economy is the proper stewardship of our common resources. The true definition of sustainability is that we can live this way forever without the worry of self-destruction or industrial toxicity. Our shared concerns are time, space, land, natural resources, and our humanity. We were indoctrinated to believe that the economy was about production, distribution, and overconsumption. This is a dangerously false view. We have less time than ever for art, recreation, and family. We have less space due to clutter and population explosion. Our productive land base has been wrestled into the greedy palms of banks, corporations, and the governments they dominate. This theft has brought America and American families to the precipice of a dismal future. Our resources are being depleted at such a rate that ecological collapse is a real possibility. Lastly, our humanity is being assaulted. Communities and indigenous cultures the world over are being devastated. Neighborhoods, families, and individuals are being fragmented. We have reached the end of unbounded economic growth. This kind of growth has become cancerous to our organic civilization. We now see the necessity for a steady state economy in which balance with natural cycles is is the new standard. This has dramatic consequences. We need to root our economy in rich soil. This soil is not commerce. The soil is the caring for one another and the stewardship of our common resources. Ecological common sense decrees that we supply our needs from our surrounding countryside. Meeting this demand is what will create family wage, green jobs. This is called cottage industry. The innovative technologies required for this to happen are latent within our community. We have amazing talent and genius right here in this valley, waiting to be harnessed for this cause of self-reliance. The combined budgets of our school district and city are over $125 million. If that isn't enough public money to build core leadership for a fundamental sustainability movement, then we're in trouble. For Ashland to be our role model city, our budgets must be allocated through a social venture fund aimed to alleviate social ills. When our public revenue becomes invested in socially responsible ways, the private sector will follow the lead. If we are seeking a steady state, ecologically meaningful economy, we should first set our hearts and minds to stopping the exodus of our currently financially stressed families. Let's first take care of our single-parent families and our homeless families before we seek to attract well-to-do families as their replacements. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's take 4 or 5 minutes to add any other comments you would like to do. I did not hear anybody talk at all about affordable housing as a way to attract families to Ashland. I don't know if that's in your thinking, but let's take, again, 4 to 5 minutes for the whole group, so not each, so please be succinct and share the mic.
Okay. One of the things that the school community needs to deal with, which probably you have a lot of rules against, and we may have to actually do lobbying in the state legislature, but we've got to free things up. You've got a lot of physical assets, and you've got to start using them, I think, and we could use them in new ways. Let me not be quite so pushy about it. So, for example, if the school district were to contribute land for low-income housing for families with children to be built, then the city could contribute community development block grant funds. And we could even do self-help like the construction as they did down at the dog park. Anyway, you can start to, this is just an example, we could start making it attractive for families with children to come here. But it requires looking at it with a new mental framework as to at the schools and what assets they have and how they can be used in more productive and new ways.
Thank you.
Almost gets to be too great to forget. I think I've said what I've said, and I think SOU is one thing we dropped out. When I was mayor, I met with the SOU Senate on a regular basis. It was part of, I thought, my duties because they were so important, and I went to Salem and lobbied for them with the students. Abdi was here earlier. I was in his middle school class a lot for other things, and we had students involved a lot. We tried to get student liaisons on almost every committee. It was difficult for them to come because they're so busy, Alex and Emma. It's a busy time for them. But getting people involved is really the secret. And how each of you can help is volunteer for committees at the city. We need a balance. We need a lot of volunteers. We're seeing a decline in that. And we really need to get people involved. And that's a great thing. So.
Yeah, I think we have the tools right here to be able to contribute to finding solutions to whatever problems we're facing. Anything short of hog-tying families and bringing them and forcing them to live in Ashland, if they don't want to move here, they're not going to move here. A city is an organic unit, and so if families are moving out, families are moving out. And if families are moving in, they're moving in, and that's the natural flow of things. Of course, we want to make the quality of life better for everyone here, and not just to attract some fairyland scenario. The last I checked, there was 2,700 kids in the school district, and the budget, the last budget that I saw was $26 million for those 2,700 kids, which works out to just under $10,000 a kid. Talking about job growth and infilling land, the city is developing all of its land in ways that probably aren't the most sustainable and attractive and for low-income housing or affordable housing. And they're actually calling it workforce housing now, not affordable housing, because there's such a low-wage jobs here, and it's hard for a low-wage income employee here to make it. A minimum wage employee brings in just over $1,000 a month after taxes, and that's working 40 hours a week at minimum wage, and it's impossible, nearly impossible for an individual to survive like that. You have a family, you have a second, your spouse or partner working another 40 hours a week, and no time for the kids. Who raises the kids? Television and peer groups and whoever else. So we have some concerns, and we're looking to really address the fundamental foundations of our society and our culture here, and really be a role model and a leading voice. It's going to take plenty of town hall forums and meetings with all of us getting together and everyone having a voice, and then our elected officials and our appointed officials will follow the lead of the citizens, because that's what it's all about. You guys are the leaders, and we are the followers. We are the servants. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 2. And we'll start, we started last time with St. Alan.
Yes.
So we'll start with John. Question 2 is about ideas for reducing fees charged by the city to the schools. If elected, what can you do to reduce the price of city services for schools? For example, water and sewer rates. Schools are one of the highest users of water and pay those fees.
I read in the announcements for tonight's thing a few days ago, people were using, instead of the example of the Portland schools, the Lake Oswego schools. So I called the city manager and said, so where did you get this couple of $1 million that you gave to the Lake Oswego schools? And primarily, here's how they did it. They upped the franchise fees that they charge their utilities. They have mostly external private companies or supplying, or districts or whatever, supplying their utilities. Whether you have an internal or an external utility company operating within your city limits, it's common practice to charge a franchise fee. So they upped the franchise fees for 1 year by about 40%, and that generated the bulk of the money they got. Now think about that. Is that the kind of thing that we want to do? What's the problem with doing that? Well, the problem with doing that is that those utility companies probably pass that on directly to their ratepayers, which is the same group of people that are already paying for the school. So what you're doing is not generating new money or finding money that is not doing anything. You're prioritizing in sort of unusual and complex ways. You have to make a distinction between creative ideas that actually create new value and other ideas that are basically simply moving things around within an existing structure. So what I was talking about by putting the schools into the economic development plan for the city, and thereby creating a justification that allows you to give money to the schools. For example, we could do something like this. Instead of doing the rate scheme, we get a certain amount of room tax money, and we use it for a variety of things, but one of the things we use it for is economic development. If the schools are identified as part of our economic development plan, then that money, some of that money, could go to the schools, and we have to devise what is the specific purpose for that. Now, some of these ideas and schemes I want to lay out here could be used for that purpose. Let me give you an example. There's a public-private partnership going on in Ashland now. Does anybody know what it is? Standing Stone has a contract with the city of Ashland to use a portion of the Imperatrice property for growing livestock to essentially provide meat for their restaurant. Well, that's interesting. If, on the other hand, in this valley, we have a major problem with the localization of food production because almost all our food comes from outside. We need to be developing local food production. The schools have quite a bit of land. I helped put a garden out at Bellevue School as a project for a leadership group I was part of. What if we use some of the school land for market gardens and contract with an outside entity like Standing Stone to pay us to have market gardens going in Ashland on school property? I know this is an outrageous proposal, but what I'm saying is we have to think differently. If we did that, then the children could also be learning more about professional skilled gardening. So there are lots of interesting trade-offs, and we'd be involved in it, and we'd start to be growing more of our own food in Ashland. Something to consider.
We have question 2? We are. Question 2. If elected, I cannot do anything alone without your backing and support. The political station of mayor, if I become elected, would be emptied of personal ambition. I believe that all the processes of our civilization can be realized from solely altruistic motives. However, I know we have enough money to pay for basic needs, including water and sewage. The Ashland Creek watershed flows into our homes and schools because our city workers care about our well-being and keep the infrastructure operable. I know that our coffers are full enough so that our city workers, our teachers, and their support staff can be paid handsomely for providing their extraordinary services. Children learn because our teachers are under a social contract to perform magnificently and to the best of their abilities. The same holds true for all municipal employees, from janitors through to department heads. We as citizens need to concretely limit non-essential expenditures from our city and school districts' $125 million plus of combined budgets. These budgets must be prepared to operate at a reduced capacity in this disintegrating economy until we can transition. As a side note, state and federal financing of our schools comes with heavy strings attached. We dare to ask if accepting the funding is worth the imposing regulations. Do our teachers feel inhibited by state and federal control over teaching methods? They can answer. Would our teachers be able to foster intellectual creativity and critical thinking skills in our children without being under the auspices of the federal and state government? I think so. I think they're qualified. When money becomes the limiting factor in meeting water and sewer services, we can either compensate by eliminating wasteful spending or going down the shameless road of financial craving, withdrawal, and fixation, or explore a revolutionary avenue of reclaiming our economic sovereignty. The sewer system is definitely something to consider. Once again, we have to ask some questions that may seem unconventional, but which may yield rational solutions. There are cost-saving, technologically advanced composting toilet systems available for our city and schools. Composting toilets, besides being comparatively cheap and ecologically sound, also refocus our attention on our biological reality. This is a good thing. Just as there is no away when we throw away a piece of garbage, there is no away for the byproducts of our biological processes. Manufacturing garbage can be replaced through responsible packaging, and the demand on our sewer system can be offset by phasing in composting toilets. How the city and schools meet their sewage and water needs should be decided by informed citizens casting the deciding votes through a referendum.
Thank you. So in this 5, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, Alan.
Thank you.
I was going to give you 8 minutes there.
On the question, a quick thing about water rates. Ashland charges their cost and then they add a tax to it. They can't do that for nonprofits and government agencies, so they have a different water rate for SOU, the churches, and the school district. I don't think that's going to be changed, because anything they reduce there, we put conservation in years ago. We actually use less water today than I think we did 10 years ago. But that cost the city, their costs kept going up, so that raised the rates to cover for less income from less water. It's kind of a catch-22. When I came into the school district, first thing Lauren Lumen and I, we actively went out, and most of the school districts have the access to town irrigation district water, which is an annual fee, and it's not by how many gallons you use. So we piped and fixed the leaks, and we put a much more efficient system in, which is in place today, and I haven't kept track, but I'm sure the district's keeping it up. When I first came into the school district, the maintenance of the buildings was horrible. I mean, it was just beyond belief, and we went through them one at a time and got them up and got maintenance crews doing what they should. We bought Willow Wind. It was very controversial at the time. I think we paid $800,000 for it. It paid off in 8 years. It's totally paid for. It's producing income for the school district. Opened it up for homeschool. By the way, my uncle and aunt created the law that creates homeschool in the state of Oregon. They got ticketed in the Supreme Court. It must have been in the 60s. And they won the case in the Supreme Court because they homeschooled. And then the school district took Willow Wind to welcome the homeschoolers, and it became quite an asset for a lot of students. And it's a wonderful place. There is plenty of land in front of Willow Wind for affordable housing. Currently, I see they're paying it. Great for keeping it up. The other thing we did, and I did it while mayor and pushed it hard, the city took over all the landscaping 1 foot away from the buildings. And we did the landscaping. The district didn't have the money. I don't know if we're continually under that same contract. I don't think so. I went away afterwards. It was a huge fight. But I looked at school district property as being the playgrounds, the parks, everything year-round for all of our kids. And it made sense to have the parks department, which was very efficient, and had plenty of staff and did a great job. And it changed the tenor of the school. I mean, it just looked so much better. And it was just it was a great thing. It saved the district. So there's little things we can do to help. I think health clinic, the hospital's still helping there. The Ashland Health Clinic, Community Health Center is active and keeping a nurse on staff, which is great. Other than that, I don't know what the city really does. You've got, we live in a wonderful place. We get $3 million a year from our activity levy. It's something very unique to Ashland. And we need to fix the educational funding as a state. Ashland has far more money than other districts. I've got information here. If you have a $200,000 house in Ashland that's assessed, you're going to pay about $800 to Ashland School District. That money goes straight to the state. Then the state funds at the level, I think it's about $6,400 per student. The local option levy, you pay $245. And then the Ashland School District bonds, which I hope we talk about a little bit later, are almost $400. And the neat thing about Ashland, the voters approve all of that when it goes. The school board also put in a 1% new construction tax, I think about 2 years ago, which I'm not really supportive of because I think it stops